Good morning, this is Angela with Parker's Permaculture. I am sitting on my front steps here in Portland, Oregon in late May, and I'm going to make a little bit of a different video today, and that I'm asking for your help and assistance. So recently I made a video about why it's great to be a beginner in permaculture, and one of the things I talked about in that video is how people who are new to permaculture can bring fresh eyes to the situation and a fresh perspective. So embodying that kind of mindset, I am asking for your help. I've been here for over 12 years and I'm asking for some fresh eyes on a situation. So I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. We recently did some painting on our house and put in some new windows and fixed a lot of rot. So we bought this house knowing it was a fixer-upper, and it is a long process. I would much rather be out in the garden with my plants than in the house. So we had these two beds here up against the front of the house. This one, and then this one over here. And, it's sunny. And the previous owner put in this hideous rock trim. It may look good if you have this trim on your house. I don't like it on my house. It doesn't fit the period of my house at all, but I have it. I'm going to use it as a resource. When we first bought the house, I noticed that this rock wall served as a heat sink. It absorbed the heat during the day and released it at night and helped create a microclimate in my garden where this wall and this wall over here were a few degrees warmer than everywhere else in my garden. Also, they're sheltered from the wind up here against the house. The sun comes in this way. I am facing right now straight south. So this area is very sunny, it's very dry. The soil here was nothing but gravel and clay. So very hard, very inorganic dirt that was very poor quality. So having that combination of factors 12 years ago, having poor soil quality, intense sunshine, microclimate that raised the temperature a few degrees, and shelter from the wind, my natural choice, the only choice, was to put in Mediterranean plants. So I put in some rosemaries and lavender and sage and thyme, and man, did they flourish. They did amazing up here. Fortunately, they did too amazing. My rosemaries got ridiculously huge. They were kind of my pride and joy. The hummingbirds would visit them all winter long. They were covered in bees all the time. So I thought this was good permaculture design, right? Unfortunately, because they were so vigorous and happy, they rubbed against the front of my house and caused quite a bit of damage. We had to replace, I'll show you in a minute, a great deal of our bump out window seat because the rosemary had leaned against the house. The wind had caused it to rub and it had trapped moisture. So good design in terms of thinking of the plants, not good design 12 years ago in terms of interacting with the structure. So in permaculture, we want to make sure that our design fits in with all elements of our site. And I was new and I didn't really realize how planting it so close to the house was going to be an issue. I was only thinking about the plants. So now, in order to repair, we had a rotten header in this wall and we had to replace the windows. In order to do that repair, I had to rip out all of the plants that were up here. And in order to make the repair over here, I had to rip out my giant rosemary and all of those plants. So now I have these empty spaces and I'm not sure what to do with them. I have some thoughts, but let me flip the camera around and show you all what, if I'm a little distracted, it's because Gracie, the garden cat, has come to visit me. She's not my cat. She belongs to somebody in the neighborhood, but I belong to her, and this garden belongs to her, and she lives here most of the year. So if I'm a little distracted, it's because there's a cat milling around at my feet, and I absolutely adore her. But so let me show you these spaces and kind of what some of my thoughts are. I can't put plants right up against the house again because I just spent $1 bajillion of my very hard-earned pennies repairing rot that I caused, and some that was not my fault, just the fault of a 100-year-old house. So I need a new design here. I need something that's going to be different and is going to work with the structure and the plants and my needs. but I also only have a 1/4 acre, so I need something that will utilize the space. Every inch of my garden is used. So let me flip the camera around, show you what I'm talking about, and see if y'all can give me some tips and suggestions for what I want to go and do in this space going forward. Okay, here we go. Context, y'all. This used to be my driveway. This is a temporary walkway as I continue to work on this part of the yard. This is going to be the greenhouse. Once it is done, the permanent walkway will go in here. The moles have been active. I have a triangular shaped bed here, another temporary walkway, a volunteer rhubarb, and behind it, you can see where I took out all of the plants in this front bed. The soil is very poor. There's gravel up by the house. Now I had a rosemary that I planted in this corner. If you look back at some of my old videos or some of my old posts on my Facebook page, you can see this enormous rosemary. So it was here. It grew in this sheltered corner. We had a couple of hard winters and it did absolutely great because, again, heat sink from the rock wall, shelter from the east wind in this corner of the house, full sun. The plant got huge and leaned up against my window seat and caused quite a bit of damage. It trapped moisture and it rubbed on the front of the house. So that all had to be replaced. But the rosemary tip rooted right here and then continued to stretch here. So I had one rosemary plant that covered, it was probably 6 feet tall over here in the corner and covered all the way out here to where these lavenders are. I also had a series of sages and lavenders in front of the rosemary that were all kind of half smothered. I've since removed all of those and I have this spot. So what do you all think I should do? First thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna weed out these volunteer euphorbia, which are a yicky weed. I'll put on gloves for that. But I have this spot and I don't want to plant anything else here that's going to touch the front of the house and cause me some costly repairs in the future. So what would you do in an area with full southern exposure? You can see here we don't have much of an overhang here at all, and so the rain beats down in this area. My initial thought was I would come in and level this out a bit, get the drainage going better, and then I thought maybe I would build a deck and have potted plants, or maybe I would just have some really big cattle troughs and grow things in there I don't want to grow in the ground, so that I can still have green, living, productive things, even maybe you know, like lavender again, but I'm not risking having them right up against the house. Now, as I said before, I don't want an area where I have nothing growing unless it's a deck or a patio, because nature abhors a vacuum and she will try and find a way to sow weeds all over because nature wants to produce green, abundant, living things. Nature wants to start the process of succession. This is basically a desert. Nature wants to come in with those pioneer species like this mallow with all kinds of weeds and fill this in and start greening my front. So if you have thoughts on what I should do here, I'd love to hear it. I'm not quite sure yet. Again, I'm kind of thinking maybe fill this in with gravel and do lots of containers. Then I will be sure to water it because it's right out my front door, and take good care of this spot. Or maybe I want to do a deck and put potted plants on that. Maybe I want some big cattle troughs here. So here's the other area that I removed a tree here behind my Hudson's Golden Gem apple. By the way, I will be bagging my apples tomorrow to prevent codling moth, and I'll have a video on that. Rhubarb in front of it, native crandall currant. I have this rosemary left. You can see I feel really badly because this is such great winter hummingbird food. My rosemaries bloom in January and February sometimes, but I had to get it off the house. Same thing here. I had to remove it so we could replace this rotten header here and fix my wall. I've left a chunk of it alive so that I can take cuttings and reroot it and start it in another part of the yard. So I'm thinking here, like maybe I will move this container here and make a path back this way. Because right now I have a path here, but it's very overgrown. The persimmon makes it hard to get through here. And maybe I'll just make a new path here and then do some pots along the front. I'm not sure. So if y'all have thoughts, I don't know.
I would love your input on what I can do here at the front of my house that's good permaculture and is good caretaking of our land trust house so that I don't damage it in the future, but I still can grow green abundant
All
things.
right, well, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to hearing your input. I will definitely let you know how this project is going to shape up. I have a couple projects ahead of it, like finishing my greenhouse and a few other things, but I really want to take some time and observe these spaces, absorb your input, and figure out what I want to do next. As you can see, this is a really sunny spot in my yard. So whatever I end up putting here is going to have to tolerate full, intense sun and quite a dry spot. So thank you again. I will look forward to reading those comments and let you know how this is going to progress, what I'm going to utilize this space for in the future. Thanks so much. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure and check out my Patreon and click subscribe. Thanks.